Alrighty, so the new DATURA, is that really the name? DATURA, okay. So the new Foxeer 2206 2700 kV motors have come in, and I'm getting a bit of a look over. So first thing you'll notice, hollow shaft. I believe it's for the it is all the way through, and they've got this little set screw here. So I need to see that you can see this. That's kind of important. So first thing, they use a shitload of Loctite on the factory, at the factory, for this bottom screw. It is like absolutely packed, way more than necessary. Like you really only need a pin drop on the end of this. So yeah, they really overdid it, but in any case, it's not going to come out easy, and then that's a good thing, I guess. Alrighty, so there's the motor. Total wire length. They give you a substantial amount. Let's see, what is that? About 120 millimeters of length there. Weight. $29.99, so like 30 grams with all the wire there. Cut that shorter, and of course it's going to be a little bit less, like 20, I don't know, 29 even. You know, you might shave a gram, cutting it down to a normal length for ESC. Okay. One thing I did, bit of unintentional stress test in there. So the air gap is fairly reasonable, nice and tight, as you'd expect. N52 magnets, NH52 I believe. And oh, that wire is nice and thick. I'm hoping it can really take the current, because I've been flying them with some Dow, what have I got on there, some 5046Cs and some 50s and whatnot, and really hoping that it can take the current. Alrighty. While I'm here throwing this motor back together, it's probably pretty important that we talk about this design in a whole. It does allow for you to tension the bearing. It's kind of like tightening the cones on a bike wheel. You don't want to over tighten it, so if you crank it up way too tight, the motor's going to be binding and it's going to be hard to turn around. It's just, it'll still spin, but it's going to be drawing way too much current, like way more than what it would normally need to. So whenever you're dealing with these sort of setups, it's really important that you get the tension right, the bearing tension correct. So obviously you don't want it to be like that, where there's heaps of slop. Ideally you want to get it just to the point where you can see, that's probably gone too far. You want to feel just the slightest amount, like you want to be able to feel the bearing essentially. Like, it's exactly like doing a bike wheel. It's going to be free spinning and not too much tension on that bearing. See, if you overload it, it doesn't free spin. It'll work, and a lot of people may, you may find that they're just chewing through their batteries and using way more current than they really need to, because I mean, even at the factory these things could be coming out potentially too tight. So that is really important. Maybe I can get an example on a frame here. So we've got no play and the motor's free spinning, but if we crank her up over tight, see, it doesn't spin anymore, just stops. And then we'll go and get a loose. So you don't want any vertical play, right there. Yeah, so ideally get it to the point where it spins the motor and there's no play, and that's going to be ideal. Perfect tension on that bearing. There's just, you're not putting any load on it, any pressure, but there's no play for there to vibrate and to hurt that bearing. So that's pretty ideal. Another side note, the provided M3 hardware is not thick enough for 4mm plus carbon. So if you've got 3mm carbon, then sure, use the provided M3 hardware. However, I just hit a tree very lightly, like, you know, like I've hit things a lot harder with a lot cheaper sort of motors, and we end up bending the bell and stripping a fair amount of the screw hole for the mountings, just because, as you can see here, I mean, these are 6mm. I've actually just had some random 6mm ones, which are the same size as what you are provided, and you see it doesn't not come through the base at all. So we look over here on another one, and in fact there's actually a divot, like there's actually more room within the screw hole. What you ideally want is for that to be protruding, you know, a mil maybe, like obviously not hitting windings, but coming out past the base, so it's really tensioning. So the provided hardware may be good for 3mm frames, but definitely not 4 or above. So you want to source your own hardware for 90% of the frames out there. Maybe they'll change it and give you some 7 or 8mm, or, you know, 8mm with a washer, or I don't know, some washers and then some 8mm. That's probably ideal, I dare say. But in any case, I'll leave you with some flight footage of the very first run on a race course with this frame and these motors, their first go. So yeah,
we'll have a watch together as I prepare for the video you're watching now.